You're listening to the My Wife Quit Her Job podcast, the place where I bring on successful bootstrap business owners and delve deeply into what strategies are working and what strategies are not with their businesses. Now, today I'm thrilled to have Daniel DiPiazza back on the show. And last time I had Daniel on to talk about how he grew his Instagram account to 100K followers. But today we're going to discuss easy ways to make money when you don't have a lot of money to invest in a business. Now, before we begin, I want to give a quick shout out to Klaviyo, who is a sponsor of the show. Now, I'm always super excited to talk about Klaviyo because they are the email marketing platform that I personally use for my e-commerce store, and I actually depend on Klaviyo for over 20% of my revenues. Now, you're probably wondering why Klaviyo and not another provider. Well, Klaviyo is the only email platform out there that is specifically built for e-commerce stores, and here's why it's so powerful. Klaviyo can track every single customer who has shopped in your store and exactly what they bought, which makes it extremely powerful. So let's say I want to send an email to everyone who purchased a red handkerchief in my store. Easy. Let's say I want to set up a special autoresponder sequence to my customers depending on what they purchased. Piece of cake. And there is full revenue tracking on every single email. Now, Klaviyo is the most powerful email platform that I've ever used, and you can try them for free at mywifequitherjob.com/KLAVIYO. Once again, that's mywifequitherjob.com/KLAVIYO. I also wanted to give a shout out to my other sponsor, Seller Labs, and specifically I want to talk about their brand new tool, Ignite, which helps sellers manage their Amazon sponsored ads. Now, right now, I'm actually using this tool to manage my own Amazon sponsored ad campaigns, and it makes things a heck of a lot more convenient. So first of all, I've always found it a major pain to generate my PPC reports in Amazon, cut and paste the data over to an Excel spreadsheet, and use pivot tables before I would do any analysis at all. But Ignite pulls all that info for you automatically and allows you to easily see what keywords are working and what are not immediately. No need to manually create reports or play with Excel. And second of all, unless you're a data geek, Amazon campaign data can be kind of hard to understand. And what's cool is that Ignite makes keyword and bidding recommendations on the fly that can be applied with a couple of clicks. So let's say one of my hanky keywords is bleeding money. Well, Ignite will tell me that, and I can reduce the bid immediately. So bottom line, Ignite makes managing your Amazon sponsor campaigns so much easier, and the fact that they provide me with alerts means that I no longer have to monitor my campaigns like a hawk. If there are keywords that are doing well, Ignite tells me to add them to my exact match campaigns. And if my keywords are losing money, well, Ignite tells me to either remove the keyword or reduce the bid. So head on over to sellerlabs.com/Steve, where you'll find some awesome tutorials on how to run Amazon PPC ads and the opportunity to try Ignite for 30 days free. So once again, that's sellerlabs.com/Steve. Now on to the show.
Welcome to the My Wife Quit Her Job podcast, where we'll teach you how to create a business that suits your lifestyle so you can spend more time with your family and focus on doing the things that you love. Here's your host, Steve Chu.
Welcome to the My Wife Quit Her Job podcast. Today I have my buddy Daniel DiPiazza back on the show. Now, if you don't remember Daniel, I actually had him on the podcast way back in episode 103, where we talked about how he got 130,000 Instagram subscribers in 6 months. He is the owner of rich20something.com, where he teaches young people how to start their own freelance businesses. But a lot has actually happened since we last spoke. So for one thing, he acquired under30ceo.com, which is another huge entrepreneurship site. And he has published his very own book entitled Ditch Your Average Job, Start an Epic Business, and Score the Life You Want. Anyways, I often get asked what the best way to make money is if you have no money to invest whatsoever. And people come to me and they say, hey, Steve, I want to start a business. I don't have any money. What should I do? And I often reply to them that starting a business isn't necessarily the best idea if you have no money. And instead, I point those people to freelancing. And so today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the best way to make money as quickly as possible, which just happens to be Daniel's specialty. And with that, welcome to the show, Daniel. How's it going, man?
It's going great. You have a great radio voice too. I didn't realize how much I liked it until I heard my name with your voice. Was that like a backhanded narcissistic self compliment? That was
it was like a humble brag, I guess.
I didn't realize how much I liked you until you talked about me. No, but thank you again for having me, man. I really appreciate it. And look, that's interesting that you asked that question because I was doing a webinar a couple of days ago, and we were going over different ways to set up websites, and I was going over one of these software programs called ClickFunnels, right? And so
Uh-huh.
for anyone who doesn't know, ClickFunnels is just a landing page software. It's a program where you can make different pages so people can find your website and sign up for your email list, right? And I was telling my audience, I was like, look, it's $97 a month, and some people on the webinar were like, oh my God, $97 a month, I can't do that. I'm like, well, look, if you can't do $97 a month, you're not ready to start a business. I'm not trying to be mean, but you should.
No, totally.
It's not. That's not a moral judgment. It's just like a fact. But there is something to be said for starting free or cheap, right? And I think a lot of people would benefit by figuring this out. But I want to pose you a question, and we'll circle around.
Okay.
My question to you would be, when you started My Wife Quit Her Job, was there a pain point that you were trying to solve?
So when I started the blog, I already had a successful e-commerce business. And the main pain point that I was trying to solve was everyone was just asking me questions about it. And I thought it'd just be interesting to document everything.
Mm-hmm.
And what ended up happening that was funny was none of the people who were my friends read it at all. And I just started getting random people reading it.
That always happens like that. No one in my family or my friends has actually read my book yet. It's only been like random people. But that's a really good point that you've made. And the thing that I always tell people when they're looking to start a business, especially when they don't have a lot of money to start off, and probably this is a good thing, honestly, that they don't have a lot in the beginning, is that you need to identify a problem that other people are having before you start thinking about how much money you should be spending or where you should be allocating your time. Because often what happens if you don't start with a pain point, or if you're not focused on solving a problem first, is that you invest money in things that seem like a good idea, but you're really just copying someone else. So an example might be, people see that Snapchat just IPO'd for a god awful amount of billions of dollars, and they say, oh, well, that's obviously a good business idea. Let me try to replicate that. And obviously it's not going to work, right? And that happens a lot with all these different business models. And so what I tell people to do is I say, hey, look, before you go starting a business, stop thinking about you and think more about other people, because you're going to be serving those people. And the first place you can look are places like forums, and forums that people are talking about things that are going on with them. One of the places I like to look is Quora. Do you go on Quora?
I have an account there, but I just kind of lurk.
Yeah,
I never answer any questions, actually.
That's okay. I mean, I'm a lurker too, but the lurkers are good because we can get a good, like a 40,000 foot view of what's going on with people. So for instance, let's say that you're into, oh, I don't know, that you're good at fitness, or you're good at childcare, or you're really good at painting or drawing, or you have some other skill. One thing that you might want to do is you might want to go on a forum like Quora, or go on a Facebook group, or look to where other people are talking about the types of things that you're good at, and see what problems people are having. And once you identify problems people are having, then you can engineer a service around that, and you can start testing that and see if people will pay for it.
Interesting. I know you have a lot of students in your class. Can you just pick like one example that we can kind of go through in depth?
Yeah. Okay. So let's think of an example. Do you want to go through like one of my examples? Do you want to go through a student example?
Let's go through one of your student examples. I think that'd be interesting.
Okay. So student example. Let's take, for instance, one of my students. Her name is Ali Garcia. Okay. So Ali is a personal trainer, but she wasn't really sure how to get work outside of her. She works at, I think it's either the YMCA or LA Fitness. She wasn't sure how to get clients outside of her existing job. And she knew that she wanted to start something on the side, but she didn't know how to expand and how to use her skills to start a business rather than work inside someone else's business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that she did was she started looking online to see kind of if there was a specific problem she could solve outside of just general fitness, because being a personal trainer, while it's admirable, isn't something that's, I would say, specific enough to warrant having a business that stands out, right? So the first thing she did was she looked for a certain group that she could serve with those skills. So in her case, what she did was, after doing some research, looking on Quora, she looked on places like Cafe Mom, which is a mom blog, looking on Facebook groups. She found that a lot of times moms have trouble after they have a kid getting back into shape and getting back to their pre-baby weight, or just maybe if it's not pre-baby weight, just a weight that they feel comfortable with and feel good with, right?
Okay.
So what she started doing was she started making YouTube videos specifically for moms on how to get back in pre-baby shape. And she just started making free content. And the cool thing about this is that she wasn't selling anything. She wasn't pitching anybody. She wasn't trying to do anything special at first. And honestly, a lot of her fitness advice wasn't it wasn't something that only moms could benefit from. Like there aren't a lot of exercises that are just for moms. Like these are just basic exercises to tone you up and keep you in shape. But the way that she positioned herself was she said, hey, look, I'm Allie and I'm here to help busy moms get their body back, right? And because that was her headline, because that was the way that she described herself, naturally people gravitated towards her. She didn't even do anything special either. She didn't run ads. So she started doing these YouTube videos, and the big thing was she was consistent with them. She was doing like 2 to 3 a week.
Just curious, what is the production quality of these videos? Like, was she just filming them on her phone?
You can, I think she started off on her phone, but you can,
Okay.
I'd recommend that you get, like I'd say a mid-grade, like what's it called? Prosumer. It's like not professional, but like a higher end consumer camera.
Okay.
After you've, like gotten some experience with how you want to shoot and what you want to do. So after about 3 or 4 months, she decided to upgrade herself and she got a nice camera.
I'm just curious because I get questions like this a lot where people just get stuck in a hurdle where like they want to do video, but then there's the editing part, there's the equipment. Like, so how did she get over those problems?
I mean, I think that those are like perceived problems, right? Because what happens is we look at other YouTube videos that, let's be honest, YouTube now is television quality. A lot of it, it's really good.
Yeah.
The editing is like network quality. The video itself, people are shooting in 1080p. I mean, we're shooting our podcast now in 4K. You don't need to shoot in 4K though. And so what you do is you start with what you have, because at the end of the day, a search engine like YouTube is for finding content, and the content that's ranked in a search engine like YouTube is ranked by the quality of people watching it and the quality of the actual material, not of how it looks. And people care about the information. Like a lot of the best videos that are viral out there right now aren't the best looking ones. We've seen this over and over again.
Sure.
So she started shooting these videos. She grew a small following, and she grew a small niche personal training practice around training moms online by giving them like meal plans and workout plans. And now she has like 40 to 50 students at a time, and they're all paying her a couple $100 a month. And so she's able to basically make a side business and then turn it into her full-time business just by putting out content that attracted the right type of people, not even trying to go big time,
That's interesting. So how did she transition from YouTube? Like, was she just getting YouTube subscribers, or did she point those people back to her site? Like, what were the steps?
A couple things. One, there's lots of different ways you can encourage people to interact with you further. So if you really want to go the basic time-tested route, it's always going to be email list, at least for now. Maybe that's going to change in the next couple of years. I don't really see it changing. I think that what's happening now is just there are more channels. I think that what people were afraid of is that there would be fewer channels, but now it's just that there are more channels, and a lot of them work. So with her, she just set up a basic ClickFunnels page like we were talking, and she's like, hey, this is Allie. I do weekly videos, but if you want more information, I have a newsletter, which is just a lot of times they were just reposts of her videos with some writing. A newsletter I send out every week, and you can go to my email list. And we can talk about like the simple way to set that up if you want, but it's very simple to set that up. And so it's just a matter of finding little pockets of people who want specific information based on what people are saying in the real world, in the wild, and then just giving them that stuff.
Yeah. So you're saying that at the end of her video, there's just a call to action to a ClickFunnels page where she gathered emails and then just slowly amassed email subscribers that way.
Yeah, and you can put that link in your description box. I wish that there was like a more complicated thing that I could say that would maybe make a light bulb go on. People are like, oh, that's the secret. Like I didn't know that, but now I get it. But that's really it though, What
about people who can't afford like the $97 a month?
Well, first of all, the ClickFunnels page isn't for the software. That's not even essential. They have a lot of free software out there. So but here's the thing. You're either gonna have to invest time or money. ClickFunnels is a time saver because it has all the stuff set up looking pretty nice, so that you can just pay and plug and play, right? And it's $97 a month. And that $97 is really representative of the fact that you don't need to spend time making it look nice. Now, if you want to do it for free, there's a bunch of free things you can do with a software like WordPress, and there are free ways to collect emails with softwares like MailChimp. All that can be done for free, but it's going to cost time. So it's either time or money. Now, if you don't want to put time or money into your business, then you don't want to do business.
Right.
You know?
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about like the research, because that's where people seem to get stuck, right? So you mentioned Quora. Do you just kind of look deep into your own skill set and then just kind of type in stuff on Quora randomly, or like what's your strategy?
Well, I don't know. I think one of the things that's helped me to identify pain points over the years is that I'm just interested in psychology, right? Like I like, in a way I kind of take a sick pleasure in hearing people complain, not because I like their pain, but because I like to see what makes people mad. And so that's allowed me to like kind of keep my radar on. And when people are angry about something, usually a strong negative emotion is a sign of interest in a solution, right? So if you look at moms who are so frustrated and so, I'm just using this example again, but so frustrated at their body that they would seemingly do anything to change, and you think, oh, there's a solution I can introduce there. But if you're just starting off and you don't even know where to start researching, there are a couple of things you can think about in terms of like how to get ideas going. So the first is what skills you've been doing at your work, at your job already. So for instance, you were a software engineer, correct?
I was a hardware engineer.
Hardware engineer. Okay,
Yep.
hardware engineer. Now, there are certainly ways that you could freelance that and you could consult with that. You didn't want to do that because your wife quit her job and now you quit your job. But right, you could certainly find work doing that, because we know that's a tangible skills. And a lot of people have tangible skills that they're doing at their job. And there's a way to cut out the middleman. An example of this was when I used to teach SAT and ACT test prep, and I was making $18 an hour to do that, and I saw that the agency that I was working for was making $100. It was pretty clear to me that I didn't really need them, but they needed me because I had the skill set. So if I could figure out how to market myself, then I could take the full 100.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Because they were essentially a marketing campaign. Another example, my mom used to do like pre-divorce, like pre-litigation for people who wanted to get divorced but didn't want to go to court. They just wanted to like end it quickly and easily. And I thought to myself, and she never ended up doing this, but I thought to myself, they're billing these clients like, $100 or more dollars an hour, hundreds of dollars sometimes for you to do this work, and you're taking a certain amount of dollars per hour away from that. What would happen if you just set up like a very simple boutique, like ended in a weekend service, right? Where you could just do all this stuff yourself because you're doing all the work, but the attorneys bill so much for this, right? So I like to think about, that's the first place. I think about my current job, what I'm doing at work, and if there's a middleman that I can cut out. And then it will be up to you to figure out how to market that. But if you're listening to this, you're smart because Steve's smart. So you can figure it out. And that's the first thing. The second thing is, what are people always asking you for? So I call my brother-in-law. I mean, she's basically my wife. We'll get married soon. But my brother-in-law, I'm working on it. I'm young. He's younger than me. So give me a second, okay? But my brother-in-law has this gigantic truck. And every weekend, people are like, Caleb, can you help me move my couch? Can you help me move my stuff? And after a while, he's like, yeah, I can help you, but it's $60 an hour. That's a business because people keep asking for that. So you have to, I think there's this tendency, and if you're listening right now in the audience right now and you're thinking, oh, I can't think of anything, I think there's this innate tendency to think, yeah, everyone else has something, but I don't have something. And I think you need to start being a little bit more aware of what's going on in the environment around you.
Let's talk about your SAT prep thing. Like that is like backed by an organization, right? And you're just one person. So how did you funnel like existing customers away from that service to yourself?
Ha! Wouldn't you like to know? Oh no. Well, here's the thing. The interesting thing about those types of organizations. So I was working for Kaplan. If anyone, okay. You've gone through all the school stuff. You know all about Kaplan. If anyone has taken a Kaplan course before, you know that the instructors there are the main points of contact, and that's one benefit of working at a job like that, is that essentially the teachers, the instructors are the representative of the brand. So, and actually. Case in point, that's a good thing with personal training too, and other really client-focused jobs. Usually, the trainer, the consultant, the teacher, the person is the face. And so, if you do decide to leave, a lot of those people will go with you. And I certainly did have some students who, after I left, came with me. But what I really found was that the gold mine for me there was finding other people who already had my existing clients and partnering up with them. And I call that the marsupial method, right?
Uh-huh. Okay, let's talk about this marsupial method.
Yeah. So marsupial. Okay. So can you name any marsupials?
Kangaroo, right?
Yeah, that's the easy one. Can you name any more?
Koala? Aren't those
Yeah,
marsupials? Yeah.
I think so. They have a pouch. Possums have a pouch. Wallabies have a pouch. And I'm going to get into what the method is. But do you know some of these pouches are actually sideways, and sometimes the baby falls out? Because
Did not know that.
Yeah, the koala pouch is vertical, but like I think the possum pouch is like horizontal. It's weird. It's crazy. But anyway, I call it marsupial method because what happens with the marsupial baby is the pouch is kind of like this external womb that it grows up in, and it's shielded from the elements till it's big enough to hop and do its thing. And what I thought of myself as when I was kind of growing in my entrepreneurial infancy was a little baby, and I thought, all right, well, who can I find that will take me into their little pouch or under their wing? Now I'm mixing animal metaphors, and who can help me grow without me being exposed to the elements? So what I thought was, all right, well, listen, who do I already know who has the people that I want to serve, but isn't providing them with the service that I provide? And so I did a little bit of research. Again, Google is your friend. And I just I typed in, I was in Atlanta at the time. I typed in or I typed in a pre-college counselor Atlanta, because I want to see if there are people who are already working with my students. And that's one question you might ask yourself: who's already working with my ideal client but isn't providing the service? So I found these pre-college counselors, and what I learned was they essentially help you prepare these essays. They help you package yourself. You know, like if you want to go to Harvard or Stanford or Yale, these places, they'll package you because you have to have a great package. But they don't teach you the pre-college. You have to go to Kaplan or Princeton Review for that. So what I did was I came to these people and said, look, I have this Kaplan pedigree. You know, if I teach for Kaplan, I have to be vetted. So I'm good at what I do. But what I'll do for you is I'll come into your business, and you can essentially white label me, and or you can essentially take me under your wing, and I will perform this service for your clients, and then I will give you a certain percentage of the money that I make. And the benefit is you get to add an additional service onto your business without adding any additional manpower or actual work, and you get paid. And I immediately get a stream of clients. So I went from having 0 clients to approaching my first consultant, the first pre-college consultant. His name was Mark, great guy, and he threw me 10 clients in the first week, and I had a business overnight.
That's interesting. Like, you were young, I would imagine, right? A teenager?
I was like early 20s.
Early 20s. Okay, and so you just went up to an organization and said, "Hey, give me your not give me your clients, but let's
give me your clients now.
Let's work together." Like, how did you establish trust? Like, why would they count on you? Was it just the Kaplan name that allowed you to get it?
I think Kaplan is a big part of it, and because they know that if I worked for Kaplan, that I had to be in like 93rd percentile test taker. So I knew I was good at it, and that I'd already been trained, which is helpful. But I think there definitely is an element of trust there. And to be fair, I think that Mark, who I worked with in the beginning, was overly trusting, and it worked out because I'm a pretty good guy, and he was a good guy, and so it worked out. But what I would recommend to build the trust going forward, and this isn't just with test prep, this applies to any business relationship. What I would say is, look, I'm going to work with a couple of your clients for free, and if I do a great job, when I do a great job, then we can talk about like what our percentages are going to be, what the split's going to be, and what the deal is moving forward. But make it as low or no risk for them as possible.
I see. That's good advice. So in the case of your student, then, did she pursue that route, or did she just go straight to YouTube?
She went straight to YouTube, but kids these days, they're just they want to go straight to the internet. But I think it could have worked too. So like what? Okay, so like help me brainstorm. What are some organizations that she might be able to pair up with?
I mean, there's a ton of these mothers groups, right?
Ton of them, man.
Yeah.
Like there's a ton of these different, and there are also a lot of groups that serve her demographic but don't train the moms.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, she totally could have gone that route as well. I guess it's more legwork, which is maybe why she just went straight to the YouTube route, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think also there's multiple ways to do it. There's no wrong way either. It's just that with the YouTube route, now she's training people online, and I think it opens her up to make courses if she wants to do that, which is always a good thing. But I think when I was doing the SAT stuff, that was kind of a little bit before. Well, I could have gotten into online courses then, but I didn't really understand that world too much. So it seemed more natural for me to teach people in person,
I wanted to take a moment to thank Referral Candy for being a sponsor of the show. Now, in this day and age, word of mouth is a huge driver of business for most e-commerce stores, and the best way to amplify word of mouth marketing is through a referral program. And this is where Referral Candy shines. With just a couple clicks of the mouse, you can add a referral program to your e-commerce store and reward your customers for telling their friends about your shop. And this tactic works wonders. And in fact, it is not uncommon to get a ridiculous return on investment. So for example, Greats Footwear, who is a Referral Candy customer, is currently seeing a 20x ROI. And referral word of mouth marketing is also useful for building up your social media presence as well, because everyone is talking about your company with their friends on Facebook and Twitter. And the best part is that Referral Candy is a set it and forget it service, requires no technical setup, and they are giving My Wife Quit Her Job listeners $50 to try them out if you go to promo.referralcandy.com/Steve. Once again, it's promo.referralcandy.com/Steve to get a $50 credit to try out the service risk-free. Now back to the show. Okay. Well, actually, since you brought that up, let's talk about the transition, right? So you're freelancing, you're making some money on the side.
Yep.
Like, when is the right time to transition, and what's the process?
To leave your job?
Not to leave your job, but to transition from your freelance stuff. Like, for example, your SAT prep stuff, that still required your time, right?
Yeah. That's true. That's very true. Look, here's the thing, and I was talking about this earlier. There is a difference between freelancing and entrepreneurship. And I didn't want to believe this. One of my favorite authors and thinkers, Seth Godin, said this a few years ago. And I was so mad at him when he said this. I'm like, no, Seth, you don't understand. I am an entrepreneur. And he said the difference between freelancing and entrepreneurship is that a freelancer trades their time for dollars, and an entrepreneur creates systems to get the same result. And I didn't really understand it at the time. So I'm like, I do have systems. Look, I have Excel or whatever. But what I've come to realize now is that there is a definite difference between providing a service, whether it's hourly or whether it's project-based or whether it's, whether there's a certain duration, and then hiring people and designing essentially an ecosystem so that a product is produced and you get paid as a result of that product. And for me, the transition came really when I'd done several of these freelance businesses and people kept asking me about the freelance business to the point where it became meta, because they weren't asking about how did you start teaching SAT? They were more asking, how did you get people to hire you? And that's a different question than how do you get SAT clients, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So then I started thinking, all right, well, maybe there's a product here. And then that's when I had to move from freelancing to building products and doing entrepreneurship.
But did you stop the freelancing like cold turkey, or did you develop the product, sell it first, and then stop the freelancing?
That's a good story. I was developing the product on the side. I started doing the freelancing on the side, and then I ditched the job, and then I was starting to develop the product on the side before I ditched the freelancing. And so I always kind of have one foot, kind of like 1 foot on one log and the next on the next log. And it got to the point with the products where I had a successful launch. The first launch we did was pretty successful, and then I had too many new customers with the product to even allow me the time to take care of the freelance clients. So I had to fire some clients. And I had to be like, look, it's been great. And I did it in a nice way and I tapered it off. I didn't completely cut them off the same day, but I was like, look, I'm just not going to be able to do this anymore. And then I had to make that transition. But then once I moved on to entrepreneurship, it was completely all hands on deck.
And then that led to, did Rich 20 something come first, or did the product come first and then you kind of created Rich 20 something around that?
Rich 20 something was, man, you're going to laugh at me when I say this. I'm 20. I'll be 29 in about a month. I'll be 29 in 8 weeks, actually. And I only now just realized that this is my career. like within the past 6 months have I realized, oh man, I've made a career for myself in this space. I'm like, dude, this is like a thing that I do. People know me for this. And I only now realize that because Rich 20 started off as a blog, and it wasn't even intended to be much more than, I mean, this was before Medium existed. I wanted something that I could just publish my own personal thoughts and reflect on them later, kind of like you were talking about how you want to just track what you were doing.
Uh-huh.
And I started doing that. I'm like, oh, this is pretty fun. And then I started to get more attention. And I think it only got attention because I had a few, not even viral, but like pretty well-received articles on this bigger site called Under 30 CEO, which I eventually ended up buying.
That's hilarious. So you got some traffic from Under 30 CEO
Yeah.
to get you started?
Yeah, and then I bought it. Yeah, it's very like Lion King Circle of Life stuff. And so I got some traffic from Under 30 CEO. I started building, and people, they asked for it. I don't know who said this, but I did see an interesting quote the other day, and they said, you shouldn't start a business unless people ask you for it. And I'm not 100% sure if that's true all the time, but I do know that was the case with me. People kept asking me for it. And so Rich 20 was there from the beginning. It's been around since 2012, but it really wasn't a business until 2015. And that's when I started taking it more seriously. And then only now, recently in 2017, in its early 2017, as we're recording this, I'm like, oh man, like I have a major book now in stores. This is my career. That's pretty cool, right?
Wait, so did the site come first or the course come first? Which is what I was trying to get at.
The site came first.
The site came first. Okay, yeah. And so you launched the course. You already had an audience then?
Yeah, but it wasn't that big though. It wasn't big.
Okay. And when you were doing your SAT prep, was Rich 20 something around?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I was doing both.
So it seems like the whole time you had your hands in different pots, right? You had the content to build an audience, and you were earning freelance income, and you were kind of preparing yourself to transition, it seemed.
Yeah, although I'm not 100% sure that was I think retrospectively, we always look back and we piece the things together to make sense.
Uh-huh.
Like again, we were talking before the call, we were talking about Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, which you should pick up. And one of the things he talks about is like retrospective, piecing together of the events to make them seem logical.
Even though that wasn't your intention, right?
Right. But of course, it all fits together in a nicely well-sequenced plan now. But that totally wasn't the intention,
Okay. And so that course that you're talking about, are you still selling it today?
Yeah, it's called Freelance Domination. You can go to freelancedomination.com.
Oh, okay. Okay. So is that your primary bread earner today then?
Well, we have a few different flagship courses. We have one, Freelance Domination, which is essentially the step-by-step hands-on approach to how these freelance businesses started for me and how to grow them and how to do it yourself. So there's that.
Okay.
And then we have a few different other products. One of them is another one of our flagships called Startup from the Bottom, which teaches people how to use content to drive eyeballs and to create a business around things that you care about. So whereas freelancing is more about providing a service, Start from the Bottom teaches you how to create content, whether it's a podcast or a blog or a YouTube channel that drives traffic to products similar to what we do.
Let's talk about that for a minute because, a common complaint that I get is that all these platforms are saturated now, right? Blogging, YouTube, podcasting. And what is your response to that? And how do you get your students to kind of stand out with their platforms?
I mean, that is correct. It is saturated. I was watching a webinar last night with someone who was giving some stats on how the info product space is growing and how that's a good thing because it shows that there's so much demand in the world, market share is going up to such and such $1 billion industry, and all that's true. But there are a few things to remember. There is such a thing as market share in this industry, and I do think that there are, in some cases, really saturated markets. It's going to be hard to stand out. But I will tell you this. The reason why it's hard to stand out is because people start these blogs, these podcasts, these YouTube channels, and they get up to I think the stat on podcasts is 98% of podcasts don't go past episode 6. What we're seeing all this content, but not a lot of follow through or consistency. And so there's this illusion of this oversaturation. But once you get past kind of like the scrum at the bottom, really even past the first year or 18 months of creating content consistently, the air kind of thins out. It's kind of like leaving the atmosphere. It's kind of like you're in LA and you leave all the smog And at the top of the atmosphere, it's clean up there. So the key to standing out really is consistency. I always say this over and over again. Consistency is clarity, and you need a clear message. And look at a guy like Tony Robbins, man. How many people are doing motivational speaking? A lot of them. But he's been doing this for 30 years. So you can't get any clearer than that. Now, you don't need to wait 30 years to be successful with this, but you have to be consistent enough with the content you're putting out and consistently getting better. And over time, you will rise to the top. It's just that most people get discouraged.
Actually, that's my philosophy. I don't actually start anything content related unless I'm willing to do it for 5 years.
Oh, that's boss, man, because that's about the amount of effort it's going to take. And seriously, I mean, and Rich 20 has only been around for about 5 years now. And well, now we have a book coming out, and now we have this, and now we have that. And that's kind of what it takes. And I'm glad that it takes that long. It's supposed to be hard. If everyone was able to do this in 6 months, then it would be a waste of everyone's time, because there would be a lot more inexperienced people leading the pack. And so we need people who've had some battle scars on them, you know?
So how do you train these people to be that patient, though?
Well, I mean, I think that the patience is something that is like, it's self-evident, right? I mean, you can't, the thing about the time is it's going to pass either way. Patience is a skill that you develop, but for honestly, the reality is, like, it's a good thing that there are going to be people around you who can't stand the wait. Like, you have to develop your patience by falling in love with the craft. And that's why it's really good to pick something that you enjoy. So there are some times where it's smart to go into a market that seems like it's hot, but if you're not going to be able to go that 5 years, you're not going to enjoy getting good at it enough to want to do it. Like, I was reading another Facebook status from a friend, and I think it was Ryan Holiday, and he's like, look, you shouldn't start a podcast unless you're going to have an interesting, different angle, or you're willing to do it for a long time. Are you friends with Jordan from Art of Charm?
Yeah,
okay.
We just had lunch the other day, actually.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
Yeah.
And Art of Charm's been around for 10 years. 10 years on a podcast. Okay.
Which is even before it was popular at all, actually.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they've already pivoted once. They were pickup podcasts before this, which was like a whole different type of podcast.
Yep.
So you got to be willing to go through. There's no secret thing. It's just this long-term consistency. But he loves podcasting because he gets to talk to all these interesting people. He gets to talk to Larry King. He just had Mike Rowe on there. Yes, there are the Tim Ferrisses of the world who go on there and get 100 million downloads in a year and a half. But Tim Ferriss also has a decade of work behind him with the books. So we already put his 10 years in, and so that's just what it is. And so I would say 5 years. And if you can really stick it out 10 years, you're definitely going to make it. You're 100% going to make it if you can last 10 years. If you can go 5 or 10 years and you don't make it, you've not been doing anything, So
that means that the people who take your class, you kind of encourage them to start these blogs or content properties with stuff that they're passionate about.
Totally.
Okay.
And look, the thing is too, here are some caveats to that. Just because you start to see more success at 5 and 10 years doesn't mean that you can't also be successful with that business earlier than that. So Rich 20 was profitable. Our first product launch was 2014. It was September 2014, and we were profitable from day one. And at that point, we'd only been in existence for like 2 years and change. So obviously, it's not a hard and fast rule. But if you set your standard at that, you're not going to be disappointed when after 2.5 years, you don't see the results you want.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I mean, you're also Daniel.
Well, yeah, but you're also Steve, We're just people,
Okay. And so I'm curious, like, how that, because we hadn't talked for over a year, I would say, on the podcast, right? How did, like, the under 30 CEO acquisition, like, what was the strategy behind that? Were you just trying to instantly tap into a larger audience?
Steve, I called him up and I said, what's your number? Give me your number. How much are you going to sell it for? And I said, I'll wire over the money. No, you know what? Matt and Jared have become really good friends, and they have a new company now called Under 30 Experiences, and they're really focused on traveling around the world now. And they take people on these incredible adventures where they go all over the world in different countries, and they curate these experiences. And they just didn't want to do the content game anymore. And it just so happened that I love the content game.
Okay.
And it was a good fit. And so my goal with that was just to broaden my audience instantly with an audience that was a perfect fit, and I knew it was a perfect fit because it was the audience that accepted me. You know.
And did you inherit his staff as well, or
No.
no? Okay.
They only had maybe like 3 or 4 people running the site, but we inherited the property
Okay. Okay, got it. And the email list and
and the
everything,
email
and
list.
social
Yeah,
media and
social
everything,
media
right?
and all that. Yeah.
All right. Hey, let's switch gears a little bit because I do want to talk about your book. It has quite a long title, I might add.
Well, there's an interesting story behind that. So,
Okay.
so the title is Rich 20 something, and the subtitle is, ditch your boring day job, build an epic business, create the life that you love, or create a, kick-ass life or whatever. But the crazy thing, and you'll see this when I send you the book, and you can see it on Amazon. You can go to rich20something.com/book. You can see it. The interesting thing about that cover, and this is something to keep in mind when you listening out there publish your first book with a big publisher, which I know you're capable of. When you do that, you are at I would say, the mercy of a lot of different people's opinions as to how you want things to look and feel. And so I like the cover now. The idea was we wanted to create an image that looked similar to an Instagram photo, because that's one of the social media platforms I'm strongest on. We talked about this last time on other podcasts that we did. And so we wanted to go for that effect. And we kind of this is like the result. This cover that we have now is a result of a lot of different people's input. And so I kind of like it now because it represents like a lot of people coming together and coming up with what they thought would be cool, and then the result of that. And so it's like this really big, funky, like chunky letters, which I hadn't seen before on a cover. And it wasn't what I had originally envisioned in my head, but now that I look at it, it doesn't look like any other book out there, and I think that's cool.
Let me ask you this, and I've always been curious about people who write books the traditional way. So why a book, and why go with a traditional publisher?
Because I wanted to be fancy, obviously. Well, no. Look, can I just say point blank that, just right out of the gate, that part of it is an ego thing.
Okay.
Part of it is an ego thing because I've always wanted to see my book in stores, and I've had this dream since I was a kid that I would walk into Barnes & Noble and see my book on the little center table, even though Barnes & Noble is becoming increasingly obsolete, apparently, and Borders is already dead. I had this dream, and it was a big part of my culture, like growing up, my American culture. It was a big part of my life growing up, the bookstore. So having a traditional publisher is the only way right now that you can get in bookstores. So if I wasn't going to be in the bookstore, for me, it wasn't an option. But then there are also practical benefits of that. And the first thing is that, one, you get much wider immediate distribution with a traditional publisher than you do with a self-published book, because they have all those mechanisms in place to send your book all over the world. So if you have an audience, when you team up with a good publisher, it can multiply that effect, which is really good. Plus,
are you implying like international distribution?
Yeah, international distribution, which is really good. And then it also allows you to get into places easier. Like, for instance, getting on national press. People take traditional publishers more seriously. We publish with Penguin Random House, which is like pretty much the biggest publisher in the world. So we're going to have access to different opportunities for press. I'm recording my book with audible.com right now, which is kind of a cool thing, and it's a big deal for me. And all those things are they're like credibility enhancers, because whether you see it as fortunately or unfortunately, the best authors are still publishing traditionally. So that's the route we wanted to go. And also, to be honest, like there's a book advance involved, and they gave me a good advance on that. So for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. And I know that there are opportunities to make more money, like long-term, by self-publishing. But I thought for this first one, I wanted to go traditional.
Interesting. I understand someone just got on Ebony.
Take that, entire basketball team. So you guys can't see me, but I look Puerto Rican, but I'm actually Black and Italian. And one of my like things growing up was like, man, I don't know where I fit in. I definitely don't feel black enough. Like, why can't I grab the rim? Like, what? And then a couple of days ago, I got profiled in Ebony magazine, which is like the main magazine for Black people. Which it's an interesting, funny thing. But I just thought it was cool. But this is another example of not saying that I couldn't have done it self-published, but my publisher set that up. So just another example.
Okay. Hey, Daniel, we need to wrap up here because I've been talking to you for quite a long time. For those people, I would say who are struggling right now, they don't have enough money for like ClickFunnels or whatever. Like, if you could just sum up everything we talked about today in like a short paragraph, like how would you want these people to proceed?
Okay, so the first thing is identify the pain point that you want to solve by doing your research. Okay, and then if you don't have a lot of money and you want to get started, then you're going to need to set aside at least a few hours a week to figure out a few of the logistical components for getting this business started. What this is going to mean is that you're going to have to spend some time, put aside some time to research, put aside some time to figure out how to set up a basic website and go from there. But the most important thing that I want you to remember is that perfect or done is better than perfect at this point. And you don't have to have, look, our website we're getting it redone and it will be ready for the new book launch. But even our website right now, with us being successful, is not that impressive. You don't have to have the best looking videos, the best sounding podcast, the best looking website in order to get your start. And just know that people care about what it is you have to say, and how you deliver it can continually improve over time, as I'm sure you've felt with your podcast, as I know I felt with my writing and all my other stuff. So get started now and fall in love with the craft. And over time, as you get better at your craft, your delivery will also become better.
Great job, Daniel. Hey, where can people find you online and where can they grab your book?
If you go to rich20something.com, rich20something.com/book, you can grab my book. And if you're so inclined as to follow me in all my likenesses around the web, you can just type in a little @ rich20something. I don't know what I'm going to do in about a year and a half, but that's another podcast.
I just want to give Daniel a quick plug here because I actually used to watch him on Periscope. I watch him on Facebook Live. The dude is amazing at like impromptu speaking. Like I feel like I could just point a camera on you and you could just talk for like an hour and not run out of stuff to say. I find that talent very amazing, actually.
You know what the secret is?
What is the secret?
It's having a great interviewer. Seriously. Seriously.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. The praise is coming back and forth. All right, Daniel. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate your time.
Much appreciated, Steve. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed that episode. Daniel is one of my favorite entrepreneurs who is both a great writer and a great speaker as well. So go check out his book right now, and the link is in the show notes. For more information about this episode, go to mywifequitterjob.com/episode 161. And once again, I want to thank Seller Labs for sponsoring this episode. Their tool Ignite is what I use to manage my Amazon PPC campaigns. Instead of the old tedious way of generating reports and analyzing your ad campaigns in Excel, Ignite aggregates all that info for you in one place and allows you to quickly visualize your data to make decisions fast. Not only does it save time, but it also makes managing your Amazon campaigns so much easier. So head on over to sellerlabs.com/Steve and sign up for a free 30-day trial. Once again, that's sellerlabs.com/Steve. Now, I also want to thank Klaviyo.com for sponsoring this episode. Klaviyo is my email marketing platform of choice for e-commerce merchants, and you can easily put together automated flows like an abandoned cart sequence, a post-purchase flow, a win-back campaign, basically all these sequences that will make you money on autopilot. So head on over to mywifequitterjob.com/KLAVIYO and sign up. Once again, that's mywifequitterjob.com/KLAVIYO to sign up for free. And if you're interested in starting your own e-commerce store, head on over to mywifequitterjob.com and sign up for my free 6-day mini course. Just type in your email and I'll send you the course right away via email. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the My Wife Quit Her Job podcast, where we are giving the courage people need to start their own online business. For more information, visit Steve's blog at www.mywifequitterjob.com.